Okay, you guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. And thank you for coming on this beautiful day. There's just two announcements. One is, in case you didn't know, Bill Conlon, he's married to a wonderful woman, Linda Conlon. She puts on every year an Earth Day festival at the state park. What's the?
Well, she's doing two now.
Oh, okay. Well, you got to announce it, I promised.
Yeah, she'll have all the kids, the high school kids here running those workshops here at Oodles of Noodles.
Great.
That worked out real well last year. And then down at Fort Churchill as well, down around Earth Day time.
And she's always looking for volunteers to kind of help out. She is an amazing workhorse, but she can't do it all on her own. So she's looking for some people that have a passion for ecology, and especially around the river. And if you guys have some extra time, we can make sure that you get Linda's number, and she would be really happy to hear from you.
And I just read you got an award for her work.
Yeah.
So you have to tell her we were bragging about her.
I will.
Second quick announcement is the county told us here that we could do food banking anymore here, but the really great news is that we had all of our volunteers band together and they pushed all the food bank out into the streets, into tents, and they did it, and they did it well, and it was well organized. And so those food bank volunteers, we absolutely adore them, and we were successful.
240 boxes went out here last Thursday, as far as we can figure.
240 boxes?
240 boxes of food, like you see on the table over there, went out.
We'll just keep doing it out in the streets until we can either find a place. They have to finish retrofitting this building. Once it's retrofitted, they told us that that the grant they got to retrofit the building was actually to turn this into a cultural center, and they didn't think that food bank was very cultural. So, but we're gonna educate them. We're not done.
I would like to make another announcement. Our esteemed leader here just got an award for special recognition for the Whole Healthy Communities Coalition and the Health and Human Services Network out of the Truckee Meadows area, and one of the first rural community people to do that. So I think we're
All right, Marcia, if you need anything, just yell my way. I can grab you your supplies, whatever you need.
Okay, I think we kind of got it under control. I'm going to put out a few things. I hope I have enough. Steve, are you printing more of these?
Do you want us to staple or do you not care?
I don't care about people don't care if they're stapled, I'm sure. We're just going to read them and hopefully put them in the compost box. This is a publication that was put out by William Press, and we distributed through the Organic Council, and I think it's a nice little thing. It has some more seed starting tips, but there's also a nice thing in there, why Roundup. I know Tasha, she doesn't use that. Why not Roundup? Why we shouldn't be using that stuff.
Funny about Roundup. I used to run a greenhouse in Michigan. Glyphosate, which is the acronym in earnest, was a restricted chemical. So you had to have a license to buy it. You have to wonder how much glyphosate is really in there. But they put more in there.
Very good. Good. No, not yet.
Children have a hard time. So,
There we go.
almost done here. Steve had more to hand out. And this is just another thing, keep your files, you can toss it out if you put this away. It's just some nice little information on there. This is another one, and this is just a small one that I did. And this is space efficient root patterns for people that want to grow a lot of land.
Okay, here now. I did the background.
And the one I gave you last week, I believe, had companion planting in it. We didn't do any talking about companion planting or trap crops. Okay. Companion planting is planting things close together that actually are beneficial to each other. So, the Three Sisters, anybody familiar with the Three Sisters? Corn, beans, and squash. That is a perfect example of companion planting. Does anybody know why they go together? No idea. Okay. Corn, beans, and squash.
I know that beans goes.
That's part of it.
We can't hear back here.
Yeah, real loud.
Okay, corn, beans, and squash. Corn are heavy feeders, and they grow very tall. Beans are legumes, and they go very tall, and they need something to grow on. So beans take the nitrogen out of the air and set it into the soil, which corn needs. Squash is pretty innocuous for as far as what it's doing for the other plants, except with their giant leaves, squash is the mulch. So it shades the soil and keeps the soil cool. As it comes up, beans climb the corn, and while they're climbing the corn, they're taking the nitrogen out of the air, setting it into their roots, and giving it to the corn. That's companion planting. That's the, I can't remember who there was it's a Native American woman. Bird woman. And she's the one that just brought that information out and gave it to all us folks to use. And then it gets extrapolated out to companion planting. I gave you all a handout last week, which was probably too early, regarding companion planting. There we go. That's the one. So,
Marcia, do you just plant the kind of randomly, or how does it look like? Is it a row of corn with the beans in there and the squash all around it?
plant the corn, goes in earliest. Corn goes in, according to the old wives' tale, when the leaves on the oak tree are the size of a mouse's ear. So, I have a which I planted from seed from Reno, from an acorn from Reno, too. Beautiful. So that's, the oak goes in, the corn goes in first. It doesn't mind the cold weather as much, but it doesn't want freezing. So first goes the corn.
Do you plant it like in a circle or in a line?
You can do it either way, but I would do it in a circle in a small area. Depending also on what kind of squash you grow, but let's go past that. Okay, so corn, and then as the corn comes up, like that, plant the beans around the corn. So then when the beans come up, they'll be able to grab onto the corn and start to climb. Then the squash is the last thing to go in, because squash wants really warm weather and warm soil. So when the soil is right to plant squash, you put your squashes in around that. So the squashes will grow, and the Native American squash are vines, not these bush hybrids and stuff. So they planted vines, and Nylene grew a beautiful Native American squash last year that I just really, really liked. And I don't have a picture of it. Looks like a pumpkin. I've grown it before, and I got it from Native Seed Search too. Looks like a pumpkin, only has more, it's a Hubbard actually, isn't it? Yes. Okay. It's a type of Hubbard, but it's a small one. It's not a blue Hubbard. So it gets to be about this big, and it has a little point on the end of green. It's a beautiful pumpkin squash. Is that a Native American? Yeah. You planted in the Three Sisters fashion. So that's why they would have the brambles in a row, because that would go in between the rows and go all over every place it's going to go. Plus, if you got beans and corn there, maybe those squash bugs won't find you so quick because they might be confused. Wait. First,
In the 70s, I lived on the Hooker River. Coalition
Uh-huh.
Arizona, and I was there in spring, so we did the planting companion, and everyone had a planting stick.
Uh-huh.
And the idea was you dig the hole with your planting stick down to where you still see moisture. So if you go in your soil now, you'll see about a foot down. And that was the idea that we germinate. And they actually put more than one seed in the hole and then let them grow together. And then it didn't have a mound or anything, but as the other things started to plant and grow, we actually would take the soil and make more of the mound thing. So you could start out in a row if you wanted to, considering the fact you want to leave enough space.
Right.
So you want to have, probably a good 3 feet.
Which you would have between your rows anyway.
Yeah.
So if you were going to do rows, there would be no reason in the world why you couldn't plant the Three Sisters that way. I don't know that you guys, please excuse me, I don't do rows. I'm terrible.
That was why I laughed when Chrissy asked what does yours look like, because if
I'm-
you were to see our beds, you would be appalled that there's no order to it at all. But
I have
everything that Marcia's
rows,
telling you
mustard rows.
is in place in those gardens. It's just instead of having this looking like this, it's all together. And that's her companion planting. That's her rotation. She'll pull one plant out, put another plant in. So you didn't know that that was being rotated. So she knows that she's taken up too much nitrogen from that last plant that was there. So she'll either plant a nitrogen fixer, or she might just put in some clover in that particular spot. So you'd never know what was going on. When I was in Puerto Rico, the farmer that I worked with took us out into the jungle. And you had absolutely no clue that you were in one of the most productive farms in the region. Then he'd tell you to look down, and you'd see in the middle of all the other trees rows of exactly what he was talking about. But unless you were looking for it, you'd never see it. Then we're walking along and you go, smell that. And you'd smell, you go, what is that? Oregano. Just right there for no apparent reason. That's the way Marcia does it. If you know where to look, you might see a row.
And I planted between rows. I actually planted collards from the start. And so I planted some rows of collards. But then what I did was between the collards, because I know the collards are going to be producing all summer long, I planted radishes and carrots. The radishes will come up before the collards get too big to shade them, and the carrots will be slower and don't want a little bit of shade. So I'll get actually 3 crops out of one area. So that's the thing about space-efficient root patterns, about companion planting also. Companion planting. Herbs are companion, it should say in one of those things about herbs. It does, it should. The different herbs are companion plants or deterrent plants. So what I do on my in my controlled environments of my hoop houses, on the ends, when you first walk in the doors, on the ends there's almost always herbs. And then when you walk out the other door, bed all along both sides, herbs. Because if the insects want to come in from the outside, and there's too many of them and they want to just destroy me, they're going to smell herbs and they go, oh, wait a minute, this is where we want to be. So you kind of confuse them. Another way to confuse them is with onions and garlic. So I plant onions and garlic amongst everything because they have a different root pattern for the leafy greens that the aphids want. The aphids don't want the garlic. They want the leafy greens. So if you plant between them garlic or onions, any allium, garlic chives, whatever chives, whatever kind of allium you like, it does several things. Puts the allium in the soil, scent in the soil. Gophers don't like alliums. They don't like garlic, it stinks. They don't like onions. They like other members of the lily family, but those aren't them. So it scents the soil, which the roots of the leafy greens uptake to such a minute amount that we don't know it. The insects do. And they go, okay, whatever they do, I don't know how to smell it. But whatever their sense is that draws them to the leafy greens, it's not right before them. So, it's not a killer, it's not gonna kill anything, but what it's gonna do is deter. So, that's the whole thing in organic gardening, is we don't wanna kill, we don't need to. We wanna deter, just to keep our food safe. So that's the deal with companion planting, and the space efficient root patterns, and which I've given you the handouts, and I hope everybody still has that other one I gave them last week. Any questions on that particular topic? Yes.
Last week, that you handed out a book, and I was asking particularly about squash bugs.
Yes.
And it said nasturtiums, nasturtiums, nasturtiums. So now, if we do this Three Sisters method, can you throw the nasturtiums in there too, and it won't mess it up?
Why not?
Well, I think that's a great.
Why not? It's an herb. It tastes good. It's pretty.
Nasturtiums?
Oh my goodness.
I had it.
Nasturtium flowers are beautiful in your salad. They have just a slightly peppery taste. Nasturtium leaves are good in your salad, and they have a more peppery taste. Nasturtiums are one of those edible flowers.
Okay, they like poor soil.
They what?
They sort of like poor soil, some of those corners where you don't have very good.
And, right. So, and that's another good thing about herbs. They like lean soil, and they like what they call, I can't think of the word right now, but it's, alkaline soil. Lean is not too rich with too much fertilizer, or even too much compost. They like a lean soil, and they also like a soil that's, think of the darn word, slightly alkaline. So if you have an area that is more alkaline than the other areas,
Has a high pH.
they will actually thrive better than, say, a vegetable. Because a vegetable is usually annuals and come in and out and grab all. But you want to plant perennial herbs if you can. All around. Now, perennial herbs not only do a thing for companion planting, but part of that companion planting part is feeding the beneficials that are also going to be part of your insect control. So, if you plant herbs around all those little tiny flowers, I don't know if you're all familiar with too many herbs. We all know thyme, the little bitty tiny flowers. Oregano, little tiny flowers. Rosemary, small flowers.
Parsley.
Parsley has got an umbral flower, which is the best. Dill, fennel, basil, thyme. Do we say thyme?
Yeah.
Okay. Sage.
Yeah. Can't help but think.
What other? Savory, absolutely. And winter savory blooms too. Marjoram. All have little tiny flowers. Now there's beneficial insects that come around and parasitize the aphids. Our little tiny wasps, bitty tiny. In those pictures that I passed around. Okay, well, I had a couple of them. It will show in here. Syrphid flies. Now, you've all seen syrphid flies, you just don't know it. It looks like a little tiny bee. Everybody does. It's a native colony. Okay, little bitty tiny things. They also call them hover flies. Okay, you familiar with those little bitty tiny stripy things that just kind of hover around? Okay. No bigger than a gnat. You'll see it's a bee. You'll see it's a
This is called actual size, that's just
bigger than a gnat. Yeah. Bigger than a gnat, yes. So, yes, that's the size of the adult, but there's even smaller ones than that. And it's see if I got a picture of it in here, so you'll know. But anyway, those little insects you want to feed. Here, tachinid flies.
March, what page is that on?
That's tachinid flies on page 4. What are these what?
What do the little bees do?
The little bees and the little tachinid flies are parasitisers of the, I don't know that's how you say it right.
Parasitize.
They parasitize the egg of the aphid. They lay their egg on aphid. The egg hatches out and eats the aphid, and you'll find these little aphid mummies, which if you look underneath the leaves of your plants and you start to see aphids, if you see the little aphid look like an aphid and it's brown and it looks like it's hard, don't do anything with that. That's got a tachinid fly or a little wasp or a beneficial insect that's laid its egg in there. These are your natural controls.
Okay, so it's
Parasitic.
parasite to the aphid.
Right. It parasitizes.
It's a parasite.
Yes, I know that.
Okay, but I don't know how to eyes it.
Yeah, right. White flies are the bane of the greenhouse. The bane of the greenhouse. Some of these insects do take care of white flies. Myself, for white flies, I use Dr. Brown's peppermint soap and water. Soap and water is probably your final attack against insects. I use about a quarter of a teaspoon per quart. Less is more. All you want to do is keep it clean. There's two things about that. One is you're keeping it clean, you're washing it off, there's an oil in it that actually suffocates. The other, it's leaving a tiny bit of peppermint residue on your plants, which confuses them and they don't want to come back because they don't want peppermint.
I used a half milk, half water solution last year. Half milk and half water for the white flies.
Okay.
Oh, took care of them.
It did?
Yep.
That's lactic acid. I use milk and water on powdered mildew and all kinds of things. He used milk and water, half and half mixture on his white fly last year.
Oh, I've done that.
Mildews. Lactic acid will help for mildews.
Just if you see the white flies, just soak the plants.
I use
Milk and water
sticky
relief.
traps
They all
in my
disappear.
greenhouses to monitor.
They all disappeared. They
Sticky
come back about
traps.
2 months
You
later.
can buy them at Peace Valley Farm Supply. You can make them yourself out of a yellow material. And hey, that's Forrest, isn't it? Yeah, hey, Forrest. You can make it out of a yellow plastic material. Then you put, it's really sticky stuff. You can do it. You can use molasses if you want to, but it kind of gets soft in the sun. But I use a stuff called Tangle Trap. Is that the stuff? Yes, like a fly strip, and it's yellow, and so it attracts certain insects. It does attract flies too, thank goodness. So that attracts whitefly, aphids, all the insects that are around looking for yellow will be thrips, not so much, they want blue. But most everything else wants yellow. So I hang the sticky traps or stick them in pots, and then I can see what insect is bothering what. For fungus gnats, Steve's got me going now. For fungus gnats in my potting soil, I take the sticky traps and lay them down. And what it does is, it'll capture enough of the adults that it cuts their breeding population down. Here again, we're not into insecticide. We don't need to kill everything.
I used to put sand down on top of the pots that I knew had thrips. That way when the adults try to come through, they cut themselves on the sand and it's very natural. You just put sand in, and it works.
And for cutworms, you can use
Diabetation for
you can use that, yes.
Sand is
But
cheaper,
also,
though.
but I got something better yet, it's cheaper yet. Eggshells. Crush them up, put them around, when they come up through
We ran
the
a
eggshells, they cut
eggshells would
themselves.
have been cost prohibitive, but
If, you-
sand worked great,
yeah,
great.
well, when you're doing it on a major scale like
Yeah.
you are. So I like eggshells because no matter what I do, the eggshells are putting the calcium back in the soil and doing a good thing. Cutworms. You ever get cutworms? Cutworms come up on the stem of young things. You put it up, and all of a sudden you go out the next day and it's gone. If you have any moths at all, and you know what, the DE and the eggshells will help you destroy the earwigs as well. I beg your pardon? Moths are the adult, cutworm is the larva.
Yeah, like those miller moths we get around here, so nice.
Yeah.
That's those little brown moths that are just finally collecting in your windowsills, and they just they're
Those are cutworms.
the last year or two we've had those massive years of them.
Okay, lady asked earwigs. There's a couple things about earwigs. Earwigs actually are good and bad. So you can set traps with earwigs, and that's about the only thing you can do for earwigs. They're so hard-bodied. It's kind of like squash bugs. They're the gardener's bane. You can set little traps by putting tops to jars that are about this, and putting them down on the ground, and then filling with some kind of oil, so that when they, have to use a whole lot of oil, you can fill them with water and just put one on the top. So when they get in, they come out, and they go through the oil, and here we go back to suffocation.
You put the jar lid this way,
Upside down,
upside down.
upside down.
Right.
This is right side up, right?
No, I'm talking this way,
That's
not
the
this
it
way.
goes. Yeah.
This way. Okay. And you just put oil in it.
Yeah, and you just kind of put it level with the soil as much as you can get, just slightly on top, and then the earwigs will come up and go into it. Why what?
Why will they go in?
They like it there.
Oh, it's oil. They like the small
You can use beer, you can use,
I'm dumb. Hello, I didn't learn.
you can use beer, but what I understand, oil works the best.
What kind of oil?
Any particular?
You can use kerosene if you want, but I would prefer to use vegetable oil. Yes, sir.
I had a lot of help last year from lizards.
Lizards are wonderful.
Aha. The trouble is, they scare you half to death. But they were doing, I had about a dozen of them at one time that lived in the garden. They were really doing the white flies and everything else, once I noticed, and I probably doubled their size last year out there, so they were getting pretty big come fall. Yeah, but I hope so. Somebody,
Frogs, yeah, I have a frog living in my greenhouse.
somebody.
I have it living in my hoop houses. So, frogs are wonderful things. Okay, so I got derailed, I think. Any other questions on that? Yes,
I have a
ma'am.
question not necessarily about bugs, but you've been saying that we can use lawn clippings in
Yes.
our compost, but not to put, weed killer and stuff on there. How do you fertilize your yard? So
Compost.
that, just put compost on it?
Compost.
All right, so that'll take care of weeds is there any way to take care
You
of
know
weeds on
something, you
lawn?
might just have to take care of the weeds yourself.
Okay,
I know how to take care of weeds. When you see a weed, you pull it.
okay.
If you have dandelions, is that
think
one
I
of your
learned that.
problems in
Yeah.
the lawn? Eat them. Dandelions are wonderful things.
Yeah.
They're good for your liver.
If you don't
they're
spray
good
the
for salad.
dandelions that are coming up in your yard, you can actually eat them.
You can eat them. You can make wine out of them. You can make, yeah. No, I don't know about eating the flowers. Dandelions are good also for beneficial insects. The only thing I know about the flowers is you make wine out of them.
And you pull up the roots, and roots are good liver cleanse.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
dandelions aren't bad.
Also, another thing with dandelion, the roots, if people are sick and they've got a little too much, something going on in here and it's not going exactly right, dandelion root cleans out your liver and your gallbladder and all that stuff. So you can make tea. So you can pull up the roots as long as there's no poison in them, wash them with a scrub brush, slice them, dry them, and keep them in a dark jar on your shelf, and you've got a tea that'll help somebody that's
Does it work like ginger then?
I don't know that ginger is so good for that. I know ginger is good as an anti-inflammatory, but I know dandelion is about, that and milk thistle are about the best for your liver.
Ginger's good.
Here's another one. Roast the dandelion root. You can cut it up, you can roast it, you can grind it. I forgot all about that, Tasha, thank you. You can grind it, and you can put it and use it for coffee. You'll find a lot of these coffee substitutes have, like chicory, same family. You'll find a lot of these coffee substitutes have dandelion root in them.
Especially from New Orleans, I noticed that. A friend of ours sends us coffee all the time, and always has so many things in it. Dandelion root, chicory, other roots too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't drink coffee, so anything that's in there is
You have to remember all those strange people.
Yeah, I do.
There's a question, does anybody want to hear the question?
Yes.
Sir?
They said that one of the biggest poisons for dogs was natural fertilizer. So what's the difference between natural fertilizer and compost?
What is their difference between natural
Well, I
fertilizer?
asked her and she said
She
that
didn't know.
natural fertilizer was too concentrated, and so if the dogs are digging in it or licking it,
My
they're
dogs
really
eat it.
attracted to it.
My dogs lick it out of my pots.
That's cocoa balls.
Uh-huh. Huh?
Well, she said natural fertilizer, but
You're gonna have to ask her to be more specific about that because what's in it? Natural fertilizer could
Well,
be.
yeah, and-
Cocoa hulls would definitely be one that would be bad for dogs.
cocoa?
Cocoa
Yeah, yeah,
from
and
the-
she did specifically say especially cocoa, yeah, the cocoa mulch.
But we can't get cocoa mulch here, it doesn't grow here. Your compost is gonna have to.
But she said, yeah, with natural fertilizers, they had a tendency to be heavy in manures.
Well, that's your decision. If you make your compost and you are concerned about your dog and you don't want your dog to eat your compost, don't put so much manure in it. Oh, they come poop singles in the winter, don't they? Okay, so that is definitely, that question is a good question, but that's out for somebody else to answer, because I never heard of that one before. Christie?
I have been battling for about 10 years this ant pile, and it's the red ants, the harvester ones, and nothing will grow around them, of course.
Right.
And I let them have a little space, but now they're getting bigger and bigger, and so I
Yes.
keep trying to move them, and they keep coming back. Is there any?
Yeah, there's a couple of things you can do. Gypsophilia is also, its common name is baby's breath. For some reason, the ants don't like baby's breath. So I used to get my red ant piles to move when the baby's breath was coming up in the spring when it was blooming. You know, it was looking good. I have perennial baby's breath. And I would just take, with my scissors, take a bunch of stalks and stick them down in the hole. And sometimes they'd push them out, but most of the times they would just kind of move away and come up somewhere else. If you want to kind of get a little more intense with them, boric acid, which is the stuff you use to wash your eyes, boric acid and sugar combination. Boric acid is poison to ants. So you can try the boric acid sugar, and what you do is the ants think that the boric acid and sugar are the same thing. They take it down and they feed it to the queen, and the colony starts to collapse. So that's another way you could try to do it. Those are the ways that I do it to try to get it to move. I've found that the baby's breath is really a good thing. So stick a whole bunch of baby's breath in and around. They'll pop up somewhere else. But just keep doing that and see if you can't get them to pop up in your neighbor's yard.
You don't like your neighbor.
That's like I said, the only thing. And black ants, those kind of ants, Dr. Bronner's peppermints, they don't like it, they won't cross it.
They don't?
They won't cross it, no. So you know lines, you know how they make their lines, and they go back and forth, back up to your kitchen, up to the water faucet, right? ants, Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap, all along the window wherever it's coming in, all along wherever the ant line is coming in. I take Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap, I just take it straight, put it on, then they quit coming in, and then I got soap already there, I can wash the windowsill. Anywhere. And there's about any store in the health food. It's a liquid. And Dr. Bronner's makes several different kinds. They make lavender and eucalyptus and all the... So, but it's the peppermint in particular, for some reason. And peppermint's another one that's a really good companion plant, but be careful, it'll take over.
I have one willow, and of course the aphids on it, and then I have the black yams that cultivated aphids.
Yes.
But I don't really care. I mean, it's kind of off the. Can it kill the willow eventually, or? I mean, it hasn't yet, but I haven't done anything about it.
No, I think
And then the birds come and eat the aphids.
you know, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship that's going on there, and as long as they're not bothering you, then
Yeah. Okay.
if you see the trees start to, yeah, languish, it's not growing, or it's just a wilt, or something like that, the ants won't do that to, or the aphids won't do that to the willow. Had a plum tree last year, and I keep saying every year, I'm going to spray those fruit trees with dormant oil. I keep saying every year I'm going to do it, and every year I forget. I get busy doing other stuff, and it just isn't that important to me. So this beautiful plum tree, I look at it, and once again, it's covered with aphids, and I'm just going, oh, come on, because it's been struggling on and off for years. So I washed them the best I could, and knocked down the population a little bit. That's your first defense against aphids, is a strong stream of water. Wash them off. So then I just let it go. I got busy doing something else. I forgot what was going on, because if you're going to wash them, you should do that every 3 days if you want to interrupt their life cycle. So I forgot, and I went back a few days later, and I'm going, oh no, covered with ladybugs. Oh, good. Covered with ladybugs. So if I hadn't let that happen, because I was a procrastinator, then those aphids would not have come back. You know, the ones that were left on would not have propagated. Then the ladybugs, when they came flying through on their way to wherever they were going, wouldn't have had food. So it, symbiotic relationships.
They're on their way to our house now. They've got it figured out.
Most everything lives at our house.
Plant something, and if you feed them, they will come.
Right.
So what a lot of people do, we found, is that they send off to wherever it is that you're sending off to, Peaceful Valley or your own special place, and they get these insects that work for you. And isn't that wonderful? So they're going to get this box of ladybugs. So they release the ladybugs to their garden and go out the next day, and they're all gone. Why? Because they didn't have anything that ladybugs wanted to eat.
More than that, they were slaves.
Well,
They took those ladybugs as slaves from where they were, and transported them, and put them in.
I told you, Marcia takes Mikhail Gorbachev's quote, exploit no one, to an even further degree. She does not like this.
But if anybody doesn't know, we have a ladybug,
You're not going to get
now I'm
that.
not gonna, will you leave me alone? A ladybug, the place where they go in the winter, and then they go underground, and then they breed, and they come back in the spring, and they come out, and they all come around and come in our gardens. There's one of those here. I'm not telling anybody where it is. No, here in this area, because they do travel quite a ways. So the ladybugs that are around will go to this place that I know where it is, and I ain't telling them. Because as soon as these people they steal them.
They collect.
They collect them, they come around with vacuum cleaners, and they vacuum them up.
Then they'll
and
sell
they
them
put
to
in
you,
little
take them to your
boxes,
gardens, people will let them out in their gardens, they don't have any food for them, so they fly away.
and they're not in their home. They're somewhere in, our ladybugs from here might be shipped off to
Des Moines.
Nebraska or somewhere, for God's sake.
We're fine.
Don't need lace wings, they grow here. I have lace wings everywhere. I go into my new house and cover them. You have to have food for them. So lace wings, you don't need to buy, they're here. Ladybugs, you don't need to buy, they're here. Praying mantids, you don't need to buy, they're here. They're all here. All you have to do is give them a home. What we don't have here that I'm aware of is they have anybody who have any root problems in your gardens? Nematodes, root knot nematodes? No. So you got nothing to, no, you don't have to deal with that either.
Yeah.
Because when I pull things, of course I look at the top.
Yeah.
See what's going on with this plant before I'm going to throw it to the chickens. But also look at the root. When I take all the dirt off the roots. Not every plant, but every so often. Take all the dirt off the roots. In fact, I showed Shane last week. I said, now look at this. You can see if the roots are healthy. If there's enough hairs coming off the roots. If there's root knot nematode is a very, very small eel-like creature that lives in the soil. Very tiny. And what it does is it burrows into the root and creates like a gall. Are you familiar with galls that you've seen on trees? Yeah. So, big one, yeah. So, it'll be little tiny lumps. So you pull out your root and you look at it, and if the roots on that plant are distorted and all covered with these little tiny lumps, then you don't have them.
What I have mostly are moles, just lately, last time.
Mold, M-O-L-D.
MOLEs, yeah.
Mold.
For some reason, they just.
You know, I don't have moles, and moles are beneficial anyway.
Well, they are for certain things, but
Right.
they, like, they dig down and then all of a sudden, lose the plant because it's just dried out, because all the water's,
You sure it's mold?
moles, yeah.
You sure?
We have squirrels that do that.
Squirrels.
Well,
Shoot.
I've seen squirrels do that, but no, it's like my animals catch the moles, I've seen.
So you've seen them, and they're not voles.
No, they're the moles.
They're moles,
They're the ones
okay.
with those flame.
Yep. Moles apparently, well, they're blind, right?
Yeah.
They actually eat the plant, or
They don't.
No, they just eat. That's why they're beneficial.
But they can kill plants because they take the water away.
They'll just
And that's
divert
the
the water and
worst
then get
part, yeah.
moles don't like. You ever see those whirligigs?
Yeah, no.
Try sticking a whirligig around where the moles are.
It's the
And the
vibration in the soil.
vibration goes down in the
That's
soil.
the vibration is really good.
Yeah, because they're blind, so that would have an increased hearing thing. Whirligigs, huh? Mole in a bowl? A vole is like a little, between a mouse and a rat. And it goes underneath the ground and it kind of, they do eat your roots, yes, voles are bad. They got big teeth, kind of like. Golf courses eat
But do they look the same pretty much?
I beg your pardon, did it the same?
Is it bigger?
No, they're small, they're just like kind of like this, they're kind of like a big rat, and they got big teeth, like a small rat or a big mouse. And they live underground, and they eat your roots.
This is a mole.
That's a mole, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Slightly off topic, but
Yes.
we were looking for straw
Yes.
to do our borders and called, we're down in Douglas County,
Right.
and he said that he does not know anywhere where we could get organic straw,
Because I'm getting old,
okay?
and it's so nice
Well, I
to
know
be
that's
able
what
to
you said,
sit
to
down
sit.
on the edge and do
But if
stuff.
it's not organic, is that going to cause you a problem in your garden? No.
Should be fine. They're not genetically modifying straw, like they are the alfalfa.
But what about pesticides or,
There will be some residue, but no more than you get
in the natural.
in your food that you buy at the grocery store that you're composting that's non-organic.
Okay.
There's always
So
some
that
residue.
should be okay if we do that?
That should be okay. They don't use in straw bales where they're growing large amounts of oats or wheat. I don't believe they use too much Roundup. Where's our NRCS?
He didn't say he used Roundup,
Huh?
he said he used herbicide.
How much herbicides are they using in those fields?
On those fields, so the straw at the bottoms of wheat, it's the bottoms of wheat or barley, for instance, your grains, it's that bright yellow, okay? And they'll bale that off, it's good for bedding, like you want to use it, you know, for horses or something in your stalls. You know, grains, there's not a lot of value in grain as far as the farmer's concerned. There's no market, real strong market value. They grow it for some of the cattle and such of this, but they don't put a lot of money into it. It's an annual, you
You
know.
might spray it once in the spring, as it first started up, we used it back in New York, spray at least once. And that was it, so when it got mature, all the stuff that you sprayed on the ground to kill the weeds that were in it was gone anyways.
Okay.
So the stalks itself that you harvested were,
It's all run off.
It's all gone.
On the rotten weeds. It's already gone down in the water.
it's gone.
You're drinking that now.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, you're going to have very little contamination from straw
What about the
at this point.
organic
If it gets any worse, I'll let you know.
Okay.
What about what?
Getting organic alfalfa for the compost.
Getting organic alfalfa. There's 2 organic alfalfa growers around close. One is Daryl Purcell in Yerington, and I believe he only has large bales though, but he's worth talking to. And the other one is, I can't remember his name. He's at Buckland Station. Everybody know where Buckland Station is?
Jim Farms, Fort Churchill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Last name?
yeah, I don't remember his name.
That's not DePaul, is it?
No, it's not
They
DePaul.
sold, that's gone.
Oh,
No,
it's sold.
Steve, it's not
They sold
DePaul.
many years ago, DePaul was there, they were gone. No, Fort Churchill, he runs the ranch, he was a fellow who has the lease, I didn't know he was organic.
Certified organic.
If anybody wants to.
Certified organic.
You can look up online, go to the Nevada Department of Agriculture website, and they have a page of all the certified growers in the state of Nevada.
And the weed-free. And weed-free, but unfortunately.
Remember,
weed-free, we have
weed-free
a
means
problem.
chemical.
Weed-free not only means chemical, but it also means, they can also use that GM, call it weed-free. Those are the 2 hay farmers. Jim Smith used to grow out in Smith Valley, but he's not growing anymore.
He said Smith Valley to me.
Hmm?
The gentleman that I talked to yesterday about getting the hay bales, it's really close to our house, and I asked organic, and he said, well, I can't sell it as organic, but maybe Smith Valley, but he said he knew nobody in Douglas County that was doing
Nobody in
organic.
Douglas County, no. But like I say, if you go out to Yerington, go on the Department of Agriculture website.
Okay,
Call the hay growers, look, it'll list them,
okay.
and which ones are closest to you. And those 2, Buckland Station and Daryl Purcell out in Yerington, are the 2 closest that I'm aware of.
And Mark O'Farrell is going to be bringing those things into his place down there.
Okay. Now, when
Okay.
is he supposed to open?
As far as I know, he's open
Did you
now,
say March
isn't he?
1st?
I don't remember. What Mark O'Farrell is going to be doing, I'm hoping, is he's going to be getting some of that organic hay in those large bales from Daryl out in Yerington. He's going to be grinding them up like they use it for silage, only we're not going to use it for silage, we're going to use it for a straight soil amendment. So you can use it as amendment in your compost to heat it up, because it'll be all ground up, it'll work really well. Or you can use it as, just straight as a soil amendment, because it'll be ground up small enough that as it decomposes, it won't be taking out of your nitrogen out of the soil, but actually putting it in.
Can you talk about post-consumer and not in the
Yes.
What is the exact, because I asked about the behavior, she said, well, she said this case was doing something.
Right.
Is that
That-
organic or that?
No. No. That's ivermectin paste, she probably uses it. Is there anybody here that's another horse person? There is, isn't there? Yeah, okay. Is there any other thing besides ivermectin paste that they use for worming?
Diamond facial herb. You mean,
No, I'm not talking about,
there's like 3 or 4 different kinds of wormers.
but they're all basically the
They're all
same.
basically the same. But you have to stagger it because they
But
get
the, diatomaceous, if you want to tell your friend, she can put diatomaceous earth in the grain, and that will take care of the worms, and that's an organic way to take care of the worms. And then you'll still, that diatomaceous earth is, I mean, I use it for, also, that's another one to use for insect control if you needed it. Because it slices up soft-bodied insects. It doesn't slice up the worms, though, they've got enough skin that it doesn't kill them. But it does the aphids and the cutworms and those kind of things. No, you feed it to the chickens, you feed it to the horses. You can put it in your own grain. We used to have a brewery, and get these 50-pound, 100-pound bags of grain. And you all know how you get those little moths in your grain, those little weevils in your grain. Well, those weevils have a larva, which is a soft body. And so in lots of grain that's stored or shipped, there's diatomaceous earth in it already. You don't even know it. And it's FDA approved for food. Yes?
The other day you were saying about them eating sage.
Yeah.
Yes, sagebrush is a good
It's
dewormer.
medicinal.
Yes.
When they're not dealing with, they'll eat the wild ones. They'll eat sage when they're not dealing with it.
Right.
I was noticing the wild horses are really starting to roam now because it's warmer weather and my horses and everything. Where they've been right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when we had strangles going through the herd up in Story County, they were all eating sage. So, they all eat it.
So I were, horse sage, how much would you feed it? Just
I never gave to my domestic horses. They never,
There's
because
a,
mine will eat it when they're out running around in the yard. They'll eat it on the.
break off a couple of branches and throw it in there, let them chew on it. Let them then make a decision when they have enough. They know.
I heard that if you put sage in your compost, it'll kill seeds when you put it back on the.
that's why I heard it.
And so,
Beneficial growing around.
right, so I have this friend, and he's been collecting wild horse poop out in the desert, they're eating sage, and wanted to know if it was good compost.
It'd be fine, but it'd be full of weeds.
It should break down.
It will have broken down going through the horse. It would have done its
Okay,
thing.
but, so
Hopefully
if
it
it goes through the horse, it's one thing, but if you were just to put it on, take sage and stick it on your compost.
No,
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 don't do
no.
that. Okay, thank you.
But I've heard that it's good for people's wounds too.
It is.
They make like a wormwood poultice.
Poultice, and that's in Native American, if you look through any of the Native American from northern Nevada, herb books.
I do.
Yes?
It's a burning question. I've been thinking about it all week. Last week when we were digging out that garden.
Yes.
All right, and you said, don't turn it over.
I didn't want the subsoil
Right.
turned, okay?
Why?
Because all the beneficial stuff is in the topsoil.
Uh-huh.
And if you get down there and fool around the subsoil
Uh-huh.
and bring it up into the topsoil, and then you get too much subsoil in topsoil, it's going to take a long time for that subsoil to turn into topsoil. So I wanted you to dig up the topsoil and move it.
Just,
Move it over to the next,
And then you
row.
guys take
Then
it.
you go the thing and you loosen the
that I
subsoil.
don't understand. What I was wondering about was that, because I teach history and English and Spanish, and like in the 12th century, one of the greatest things that ever happened was they developed the iron-headed plow, and it actually turned over the soil, and then it was the same thing in the Midwest in the 1800s when they discovered that getting down deep enough and turning the soil over. So I was trying to put all that in.
As it
together.
turns out, that is not.
That is not.
Not the
Because
best
that, because that increased the production
It-
at that time, but it was new.
But when was this, in the 30s it increased production?
No, not in the 30s, this was way after. This is in the 19th century.
Okay.
Platte Valley and whatnot, when they were finally able to really get it down and turn it, it wasn't fertile, and when they were able to turn it over, it was this very fertile soil.
If they turned over this much, or in wherever you're talking about, I don't know about all you guys, but my topsoil's that's all the topsoil I got. And so you turn that over and.
So you want to preserve your topsoil.
Absolutely.
When you're out here in Nevada.
But in the Midwest,
Well,
their
that's what-
topsoil is 3 feet tall.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, historically, that like in Europe and in the Midwest, that what they were able to do was, the grasslands, once they were finally able to get those, because it had.
Let's go.
Yeah,
The grass roots.
and it was very fertile. It was the same thing in California when they were able to really, but that's not necessarily true.
That's not here, because we don't have grass roots to go down there. Those grass roots are going down there, and that's feeding microorganisms, keeping the earthworms alive, keeping all the mycorrhizae alive on their roots, and doing all the stuff that grasses are supposed to do that are deep-rooted. I don't know anybody
We just
around
don't
here
have
that
that
has
here.
that. No,
Okay.
we don't
So-
have organic matter.
So it depends on then the area where you are, how you should treat, how you should cultivate the soil. Is that what you're saying?
Biointensive method is done the same world around.
Oh, okay.
Africa, Russia, Europe, Afghanistan, Nevada, California. It's done the same way everywhere. And it's a method that was created by the French market gardeners. And the French market gardeners used this method for years and years. Alan Chadwick, who was a horticulturist, discovered the method, brought the method over to the United States, to University of Santa Cruz. They worked at Santa Cruz, so they started teaching the method at Ecology Action in Willits. They travel all around the world and teach this method of growing, and it works.
So rototilling is kind of.
You don't need to rototill because you don't get deep enough. Because you're not doing anything to that subsoil. Now, if I were to plant carrots, say I just did that one. We all just did one shovelful and fluffed it all up, one shovelful. And then we planted carrots. Those carrots' roots are going to hit that subsoil and they're going to go like this. You're going to have short, stubby carrots. Any kind of root crop is not going to grow as well. Anything's got a really deep root, you're going to have reduced yields on anything that's got a good root size on it, unless you have loosened the subsoil or worked it for many years, like these farmers out here have all worked it. Alfalfa, these old alfalfa fields are perfect because alfalfa roots go so deep that the subsoil is all calcium and all that stuff that brought up from the subsoil and is being able to be used in the topsoil. But none of us that have home gardens or small micro farms like Steve and I have, that our soil has never worked before. It's just rock and clay. Who doesn't want to be bothered with it?
But where my house is, I suspect that at one point it was an alfalfa field because we had lots of alfalfa weeds. They do have a very small, pretty flower too.
Very lovely.
But I can't get rid of it. It keeps coming back.
It's a perennial. It's very deep root perennial. You can get rid of it just by keeping the green off the top. It'll die. The root will eventually.
Cut it back, mulch it.
I use my-
Mulch it with a heavy mulch like cardboard.
Like cardboard. See, I just need to put cardboard in there. For a while.
But you're out in Fountain, right? Yeah, well, a lot of alfalfa fields, and it doesn't necessarily mean you were in alfalfa field at one time either.
All the birds and the.
Yeah, they all this round. Speaking of alfalfa and Roundup Ready alfalfa, they say it's not going to get away. Who's got alfalfa growing in or around their place that just got away?
I remember the farming
That's a
manager
joke.
said that they don't let it go to seed, but it can't get away.
Right, and I got it growing all over my place. I might have the only pure alfalfa seed in the whole state. By the time, well, because I'm so far away from anything, that the bees can't cross-pollinate my alfalfa. Only the local thing, so it would be all the Roundup Ready alfalfa that's just being planted in Garrington and Lovelock, and it's all going to be cross-contaminated. They know it's going to be cross-contaminated, guaranteed 2%. Okay, so any more questions?
Marcia, when you say Roundup Ready, that's the alfalfa that they say that Roundup won't kill?
It won't kill. So they can apply Roundup, and they will, which they don't know yet, the farmers don't know it yet, they'll find out. 5 times as much Roundup will go on those fields that ever went on the fields before. All that Roundup is going in our water supply.
Did we get a fight over that?
No,
Good.
I'm looking at this for rabbits and hares. One of the
Yes.
things it says for control is egg whites and vitamin D3. Do you know?
Vitamin D3 is something you also use for moles and voles, but it's an anticoagulant. So what it does is, and they get hurt, they bleed to death.
So you sprinkle it around, or?
Put it down in a hole, sprinkle it around. I don't use it.
Okay, what about the egg whites? How would you use egg whites to control it?
I use a shotgun, so I
I'd pinch something, I'm sure. Oh, this smells good.
Does it smell good?
Yeah.
Is it warm in there? Oh, look at somebody
Yeah.
that's some good.
It is. Well, all of us brought our stuff.
Oh, that was mine.
Yeah, I haven't got there.
The top one's here. The top one's for my dad. Yeah, the muscle show. All right. The top one's for my dad. Lunch and hey,
They've got chips and charred wood. Yeah, I think we should go over there with a 5-gallon bucket and fill it up after.
that was so. There's a ton of charred wood in Tahoe still.
Well, yeah, in the Highlands, we have a slash pile where all the residents bring their slash and they burn it or chip it. And this year they burned it, and there's a bunch of charred wood right there in a great big pile.
We have a lot of, she's saying black locust. These are all black locust trees. There's a ton up there in Virginia City as well.
Yeah, yeah. I like the yellow locust.
I do too. Not as scraggly looking.
No.
Christie, whatever we don't use today, from those 2 buckets, I'm just gonna
Okay.
put somewhere it's just grass clippings, so just let me know.
Right,
what-
we'll just put it,
I
we'll
think
just
we're
leave
gonna
it.
move this one pile over.
Yeah.
That's what will be convenient for you.
It's getting there.
That's why I couldn't do it. And so she's just.
Sorry. I need these gloves today.
You ready?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Marcia, we have those seed starts. We should start it in our kitchen as well, in the egg cartons. If you want to use them as.
Yeah, I'll get Shane, they're in the kitchen. You
Yeah.
can tell Shane where they are.
Okay. I'll go get this.
Okay, who moved this? My husband? Okay. I need Steve, please go get me the compost fork. I don't know where it is.
Marcia, my compost pile, like, towards the end, it hasn't been so I don't, it's okay, it'll just.
Just keep turning. It's not black. It's
All of the stuff that's going around.
Soho. See your friend, both my girlfriends, huh? Nicole and Genevieve.
Yeah, I've only recently met. Yeah, well, but like quite a bit. We had a good long talk.
Jenna was my intern last year, and now she's running going to be farm manager of this farm I've been working in Silver City, New Mexico. She's doing really, really well.
We were just talking about that.
Huh?
So excited.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great. I was just talking to the guy. I didn't get with Jenna yet.
What do we need to do?
Oh, cool. Oh, they're already sprouting.
I know, but we're going to get them organic, right?
Let's see what we
What
got.
are they?
Are we going to move it again, or are we going to just start it?
We'll get Shane to set me up another bale of it. So we have a third section.
All right.
You want a third runner right here?
Okay, you want to take a look and see how they look? That's a little stronger.
Yeah, it smells good.
There's our first one. Look at the color.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great, isn't it?
Now, this is the first one, we didn't move it.
That's the first one.
Yeah, oh, I love
No,
it.
I mean, we rotated, but did we move the first one?
Yes, we moved it. Oh, this is our second one.
That's our second one.
This is our first one.
First one.
So what do you know?
There we go.
I thought we had moved it.
Okay. So what we're going to do today is Shayna's going to set up another one. We're going to move this one over to there, and we're going to move this one over to there.
Now, when did
I don't remember. Hopefully she'll tell us.
Me neither. Of course, I couldn't even if they came up. Pardon.
Laid on the ground.
Yeah, but no problem.
That when we can do some today, we have seeds. We can do some today. You guys can take your own home with you, and then at the end of the class, you can have some of those too. Okay, so it'll be a little bit far for a walk. Egg cartons are good. Egg cartons are good to use. I usually use just about anything I get because I sell my eggs. So you use your egg carton. Okay, who can take over the moving of the compost? Because I'm going to get out of your way. So you all know how to do it. That one goes to there first, and that one goes to there.
Okay, we'll get our words.
Big fat brown ones. I only have 2 chickens left. And when everybody worked on the compost, we did it.
Doesn't it smell good?
It smells like good compost. When you get tired, let me know. Yeah.
Everything's in the way, I know.
Tell her when she gets tired, I'll spell her.
I'll keep track of it.
Yeah, that's.
He's going to have his garden.
Yeah, it's all stuck in there.
Tasha's very cute.
So whatever seeds.
I'll loosen up for you, how's that? I'll loosen up. I can't remember.
Yeah, that works
Don't you look at it? It's heavy down there. Oh, that smells. Got a weed.
Actually, that's fun. That's a Good.
And then what do they do? So I get
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, that's good too.
I grew up with 3 apple trees. I made a bunch of apples. I have great and they'll eat apples. You know what, you guys, it's gonna need a little water on that, I can see it. What do you think? Little too dry. You know what, Craig was fixing the water.
I'm gonna kill my baby. So they all had to fight over it.
Not yet, but he's going to go ahead and turn it
No, but
He didn't. Looking good. But that's our first week's compost, right?
Yes.
I think it's wet up on the bottom,
Like 2 short.
I think it's pretty good. And now we'll see. Done it? I think so. This is going
And you know, and I love
Let's vamp in this one.
It's not as big.
It's looking good, except, you know, it's always going to dry up on the parts that are exposed.
That straw is going to
That's really good.
Yeah, I can't finish it. Is that one warm? Yeah, I'm just getting on my list.
I know. That's it. Yeah, it's not hot, but it's warm. It's already gone up and gone down for a week.
It doesn't stay, it stays, still should be somewhat warm.
It is, it's warm, but it's not hot.
Does it matter?
Now, the thing in the shade would be colder in the winter, so it would be harder to compost. But in the summer, it would be harder to keep damp in the sun. So, you know, I mean, I don't know. You just cut. You know what? You got the basics, and you just got to kind of figure it out from here. So, you know, it's not that hard.
So you've been planting this week?
Oh, yeah.
Putting in the ground?
Oh, okay. What did I do this week? Oh, thank you, Bree. I had a part of a bed that just was not productive, and I never could I haven't been able to figure out why. And I don't do soil tests and stuff because why would I spend $45 for a soil? So what I did was Charlie about at Adele's restaurant in Park
We've never been there. We'll have to go. Never have.
Last time I ate there, I was dreaming about the food the next morning.
Well, now I know you guys are surprised.
Yeah, oh yeah, just desserts. But anyway, I was looking for what I was going to plant there, and then Charlie said, I said to him, if I grow fenugreek, you use it.
You mentioned that last week, didn't you?
So I planted it, and it's up already. 3 days.
You think this might be good for this bed?
Well, it's a legume.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to get a double service out of it, and I'm going to use it as tops. It's on Charlie for salads. Then when it gets a little bit older, I'll clip it, stalk and dry it and sell it to him for his leaves. And then I'll just turn the root and whatever's left into the ground.
Want me to finish up there for you? I saw you on like,
Yes.
weak for a while. Yeah, the energy was hitting the ground. But I was just past a month ago, I couldn't even done that. Oh, good for you.
Is it cool weather? Cool weather with you. If I would plant it outside, I doubt that I would spend
I hit the wall.
7
My energy level.
and outside So I tried to outside winter, I'd probably use
His new shadow.
peas, veg, wheat, mix, something like that. We're going to go outside. Plant it in fall, and come up, cross fill it down, and be ready to go in spring.
Hello, lady.
I think you also start planning now.
Every 10 days or wherever the moon is, that's the So as soon as I see the next moon, it's not plant. In the Farmer's Almanac, because when you plant, it's all by the moon.
I mean, Dawn's immediately now.
When it's on its way up, you plant leaves.
Right now, we're seeing the new March
So it's going up now, you will plant leafy greens. Once the moon is hit full and it starts to wane, you plant roots. Because at that time, the earth is cold. So you want the high tide and low tide. High tide and low tide.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking good, okay. Let's go. I don't even like drawing.
He's gonna do this is the manure. First get another rock.
The manure, dirt mix, grass clippings. I got a lot of grass clippings, so let's use more this time. Okay, that's plenty.
Maybe add
Working her way. She said they were reading a blog yesterday.
we are
Just smooth it out. That's a girl.
Outside. That's Abby. I mean Amy. Jessica.
Wet it.
Jessica Watson.
Let's throw out all this.
Jessica Watson.
Half of it at a time? Oh, no, here's one. So we're going to spend some of this later.
Or you find
Now, you didn't smell, so I don't see any.
apples, there's potatoes, so we try to
You know, okay, let's, layer this stuff and then water it in.
She takes off going due south. You know, due south because due southern route. Boy, they try to come to Australia. Just port a call. I think it's
Sorry.
Australia 2.5 months away. At least.
Good. Want another one?
And they're 16. She's already. I know, I get rid of that.
A couple times Jackie said, I'm sliding, I'm going over to the vegetarian. It's like, oh yeah.
But I think if they're up, fire, Good thing. I mean, you know, I would say so great. There's the man. They're the network.
And then we'll start traveling. I know.
Same guy.
Trying to get over. Now, okay?
How much grass did you put in there? I want about 4 inches. Put some more grass in there. You need more green material to get down there.
So I need more green in my bits. When I put some work, I
The other
You know what? Before I started doing this for a living, when I was doing it, this is important. No! Listen! Hello. Before I was doing this for a living and I had to comply to standards, the organic standards, what I would do is, I had my compost closet I built myself. My husband was working. He didn't have time, nor did he have inclination. So what I do is I get a compost pile like that, and my little compost coffee can that I keep in the house, I take it out, and I dig a hole, and I throw it in, and then I bury it back.
That's a good idea, thanks.
And that way, I didn't have to worry about, I mean, I wasn't growing for a living, so I didn't have to bring up the temperatures. If, in fact, there was some kind of a weird kind of a thing going on in my compost, it was my food, my compost, my decision. It can be done this way, so if you need your compost is a little bit too much carbon in it, and you need to do something, open up a hole, throw it in, cover it back up. Just, you know, it's your compost. Unless you are selling food to other people where you might make them sick, then you got to worry about it. But if you're doing it for yourself, you're not going to get sick. You're not going to die out of compost if it's not, you know, brought up to 140 degrees for 3 days. If you're doing it to sell to other people, you must do it.
It's going to break down. That's another thing. Somebody asked me last week. Just so everybody knows, you know, you build yourself a pile, you keep it moist occasionally when you think about it. You throw your kitchen scraps on it, your shells and your coffee grounds. It's always a good idea to have 2 piles. That way when one's finished, the other one's building, etc., etc. But yeah, sure, you leave it all winter long, you come back in the spring, you scrape off the top layer that hasn't broken down, and lo and behold, you've got finished compost in the middle that never reached 131 degrees. Oddly enough. Now, if you want compost in 30 days, you better look at that sheet, figure out your carbon-nitrogen ratio, figure out your content of your moisture, and make sure it reaches temperature. And if you want to beat 30 days, you can do that too, because you stick your thermometer in, and as soon as it reaches 131 degrees, you turn it. So you can even beat 30 days on it. But
So-
it doesn't matter. It's your backyard, it's your food.
Shane yesterday built, or yesterday, 2 days ago, built me a compost pile. And then Steve and I went to Reno on Wednesday. Tuesday, he built a compost pile. We went to Reno on Wednesday, and we got a whole bunch of spent grain from the brewery, Great Basin Brewery. Heats it up real fast.
Oh, yeah.
So what we did was we brought it home, and now Shane's going to be turning that compost pile this afternoon.
He did it.
You turned it
It's
already?
turned and he
He
added
turned
it.
it this morning, and he added some of the grain to it. So that's going to increase my nitrogen in there. It's going to increase the heat in the compost pile. So nothing is set in stone on this. Nothing is set in stone.
I don't know if we have any more. Oh,
Yeah,
there
there
it
we
is.
go. So you, please, don't stress yourself over compost.
If you want to get certified, then you can start worrying about this. Other than
Right.
that, remember, it's as organic as you want it to be.
Only compost. It'll all rot eventually.
And this? Grass now, Marcia?
Who brought this? Do they want it back?
Oh, yeah, I'll take it. Fill it back up with more
A
grass.
little more grass and then throw the manure on the top. You about that much manure? There we go. There you go. Now let's wet that because that's not,
That's pretty
that's
dry.
dry. You want to wet the girl?
I'll wet
See, now when we get done here, this isn't going to be finished, compost. Well, what it's going to be is, it's going to be the start of the compost for the community garden here. So we will all have help build the compost for the Dayton Community Garden. Yay! Then now they know how to do it, and they can continue, and they can bring their students in and continue.
How much do you let that break down until you start using
This straw?
the third pile?
Oh, that's got a ways to go still. You don't want to see too, don't want to be able to recognize.
Okay. Do you screen it?
You can, yes. If you need it in a hurry, I do sometimes.
See,
Because they
that
sit
straw is going to take the longest to break down.
Right.
So everything else is looking really good. Marcy, I need compost. I'll sift it.
Not that.
Not that. It's got to be finished compost, but that straw or another heavy carbonaceous material.
throw that back in.
That'll be the start to the next pile because that is really excellent inoculant because it's already got soil microorganisms on it.
Grass underneath.
Because we're not here every day.
Yeah.
In order for these 30 days to get out, you do it every 30
If I drop the state's
But
camera.
once you get going like this, and you start using your first compost pile, and you get it out, and you start going, wait, you're going to have time
Because I don't.
to have that second compost pile finished and another compost pile going, and you'll still be working on the first compost pile.
Yeah, easier to get this. Yeah.
It'll be ready. This will be ready.
I think I could answer that.
More dirt or water?
Water.
Really.
It looks to me like that grass is a little dry.
And also, I understand the concept. So not
Let me
having
take
a
a
lot
look.
of experience
Oh,
with
man.
potatoes would lead me to
Hell
say,
getting old.
oh no. But understanding the concept
That's what my mom always
also
says.
is light materials that would allow them like a light sand
See, this
versus
is-
our
this grass
soil
is
with
dry.
heavy clay.
And it just
So
won't
a root
decompose.
doesn't want to grow up.
I mean,
So the lighter the soil, that's why some of the things like carrots, onions, and things like that do so much better in sandy soil.
oh, nice.
So it just makes sense to me that would work. We tried the
Little more.
tires thing, where you start it and then it comes up, and then you put
How
another
much more
tire
stuff
on.
do we need?
Then when you finish putting the tires up, and
A little more manure.
we've
Good,
never
good,
had
good.
much
All right, then we
success.
finish this one off.
Pretty well quick.
Enough water or more?
so inexpensive.
probably about right.
Even with the,
See, the grass is kind of like the hay. I mean, like the leaves, and the water
Yeah.
runs off of
yeah,
it.
yeah, but you can make money off of them. People are willing to buy them. And of course, when we were going to farmers market, we could get all the sales we wanted.
This is dry.
Still dry, yeah.
From all our friends and neighbors that didn't want to take the steak, they're like, "This is back home." So no, we don't. Absolutely, absolutely. I can't wait until I
Want me to stir that, Martha? You okay?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
good.
if I can figure out how to grow
Thanks.
rice, bananas, and coffee, I'll be happy.
I know you got your thumb in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and beef
I know, you get yourself in a certain position, it's like,
Oh, and it makes no difference. I'll be walking along and everything's good. I wake up in the morning and everything's good. I walk along and I kick a rock. And it knocks my foot wrong. It knocks my knee wrong. And next thing you know, there it is again. So I know it's going to take me months. I've done this before. It just takes months when you work. If I could lay down and do all that. I wouldn't like to do that anyway.
you're not gonna do that.
Yes.
Just dump it on. Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like it's,
Just kind of leave a little bit for the top if you can, because that's got the soil in it too. Marcia. That's right.
Compost Jasper is in that straw basket. Whenever you're ready for it.
Gotta help her.
Is there any place where you can get
They're right here, you want me to move them over there?
No, not those ones.
Empty ones? Okay.
Yeah. No, I haven't.
Righty then.
Oh, okay,
Marcia,
okay, yeah,
we've
yeah.
got,
Yeah, yeah, Craig Witt.
it's already 10 to 1.
For you.
Do you know where the Silver City RV park is? Go up on down Silver City RV park on the left.
Let's see how much we have.
Yeah, we talked about you at the meeting.
And yes, and she should know that because she was. Yeah, just tell me. Yeah, that's the place, quote unquote. But I don't talk. Well, you're gonna have to now. You're supposed to be reporting to her.
Nope, not yet.
And if you know the tricks, it just becomes redundant, but if you don't.
So that's what a lot of people will do. They'll buy like a couple,
All female animals.
couple yards, whatever it is. Start off with that. Then they start, while they're building their first compost, get their garden started, and then start working it from there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I tried to do last year.
Yeah, no, he's a good source. Just tell him what you need.
Yeah.
If Marcia's there, you won't get a word in it.
With this many people, there's so many people. Yeah, they can leave whenever they want. Oh, do you see where? Oh, yeah. These are all seeds that will grow right now, outside. Mine are really
and probably the rest of the grass and the
lettuces, like a little cold. I don't have any spinach. This Chinese broccoli. I wouldn't suggest you plant this about that city, but I plant it in Dayton. So
I think we wanted the brown and the
yeah, this is insecticides.
There's a little bit of that piece that's put on top. And then we have a grass.
Break off the stem and you get a stem about that long with green leaves on it and a white flower on top. Broccolini is, this one is,
There's no more
I was thinking it was hot sauce.
put the rest of the grass and dirt then on there.
Yeah, okay. So let's go over here.
Hey, you guys just gonna talk about seating?
We're running out of time again, so we were supposed to do this last week and we didn't do it. As a general rule, seeds like to be planted twice as deep as the size of the seed. Carrots lettuces, mustards, arugula, small seeds. So I don't even plant carrots. Parsley. Okay. I just sprinkle them on, then I either cover them with a little bit of compost, sprinkle them on and wet them. Cover them with a little bit of compost over the top, wet them again, and that's all you need to do. With those small seeds. The larger the seed, the deeper you want to plant.
Yeah, it will drive you nuts trying to dig a hole for a mustard seed.
And
tried
can
that
you
on
plant them too deep?
I beg your pardon.
Can you plant them too deep that it affects them?
Some plants need light to germinate. But I don't think any of these, in fact, I know none of these vegetables happen to be amongst them. So, and that's to be up to you to buy what seeds you like to buy and to research it. If it has special requirements, it should be written on the seed pack. If it's not, go online, research the seed. I would research the seed before I planted it anyway.
Yeah, you should definitely know whether if it's something you like and it's not going to grow here, that'd be really nice to find out before you bought it and planted it and took up bed space.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, those need a little water, don't they? Yeah, why don't you sprinkle them for me?
Again, I still like
Get somebody to sprinkle them. So we're going to use these because we didn't have any six packs or seedling trays or any of the professional stuff, so we'll recycle. You can use yogurt cups.
Now, is that enough for the roots and stuff?
These is only going to be for seedlings. You're going to plant, and this particular first you get the first true set of leaves. These guys here. Hey, dude. Okay. These here, decided to use egg cartons because they're recyclable. Where we're going to recycle this thing. One less thing to put in the landfill.
Right.
Also, the material they're made out of, you can plant the whole damn thing. So you can take a pair of scissors. You can take, I'm not going to do it right now. You can cut this part off, and if you wanted to, you could take a pair of scissors and open up each one or break them apart and just sit this whole part in the ground, and it'll decompose. So you don't have to worry about that.
It'll decompose in enough time to...
Yeah. Honey, my dear, if a root wants to grow, it'll grow through anything. Believe me. I dug up my saffron bed the other day, and I don't know if any of you guys have that nasty grass that goes in the clay. Went right through the saffron bulbs, all the way through. I had to pull them out, but the saffron bulbs are fine. So, anyway. So a root will go through if it wants to. Okay, so I think I will do one, and then I'm going to let y'all kind of pick. You can all pick one of these and one of these, and kind of pick what seed you want. And I'm going to suggest that you don't water them till they get home. When you get home, put them on a tray, because things are going to turn soft and fall apart. All right, so. Here's the seeds I brought. I think, didn't I leave seeds here? Are there any left?
I think there must be.
I think they got planted.
They're all planted, okay.
And if there's not enough time for those of you that have to leave, you can take one that's...
Right, there we go. That's the way to do it. Okay, this is calendula seed. Now, calendula is a beneficial herb. It's also a medicinal herb. So you can use, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed in those fancy creams. Calendula. It's an antibacterial, antifungal. So you can use it, and you take the flowers, and you pick them up and you put them in salads. So good, sweet.
They're really pretty flowers.
So you can eat them. You can use them for creams. You can use them for, you can look online and see what you want to do if you want to make some kind of a potion. I love potions. I love potions. Okay, so,
Marcia, can you recycle the seeds from your flowers?
that's what these are.
Okay.
These are from my garden.
And so then from here, do you leave these outside or do you put them inside?
You know what? I'm going to keep these inside on a tray until they sprout.
Okay, then I get my own. And then when they're about an inch or so, you plant them outside?
Transplant them outside. You could transplant them. You could actually just put them in a garden right now if you wanted to. If it was kind of a little bit protected.
Now, how are you determining how many? Just whatever feels good?
I'm terrible. I am absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Not as terrible as I am either. Nothing comes up or requires a lot of thinning.
But over the years I've gotten so I can do it pretty good. Okay, so there is one flat of calendula, just needs to be watered and put in a sunny place. And this thing, it cost you about $20 in the nursery if you were going to buy that many calendula.
Would anyone like to buy that from Marcia today?
Okay, so
Got an auction going here.
okay, so here is a let's gather around here. This one here is salad bowl lettuce. There's not too many. So you'll have to, that's how small lettuce seed is. Anybody hasn't planted lettuce. This is salad bowl. It's a green, heat tolerant lettuce. Okay, it makes a great big thing like this with curly leaves. Really nice and sweet lettuce. This one here is a red deer tongue lettuce, and this is Alan Chadwick's lettuce that started this whole thing of French intensive gardening in the United States. He's dead now, rest in peace. And this is, and remember this is my seed. I'm not a professional seed cleaner, so you're going to find some chaff and stuff in there.
Not going to hurt anything, right?
Won't hurt a thing. Yeah, lettuce there.
Little guy says,
There you go. That's the red salad bowl, and I have plenty of that. So y'all can
Yeah, Marcia?
take what you like, yes.
Okay, one flat that you're going to grow inside and then put in your garden. How much does that feed, or is that one sufficient for a family garden and some for the food bank, or not enough? Multiple? No. So
You need
3
multiple.
flats, 4 flats, what would you recommend? Yeah.
It's 12. I probably have about 24 plants in
So
here.
how much square footage would that take up?
About 24.
24 square feet, just that?
24 square feet for 24 plants?
Usually. Well, you want to plant other things amongst them, but
Companion.
as they come up. But I would plant each one about a foot apart now.
Okay.
And then I won't have to-
companion plant for lettuce?
Garlic,
Garlic?
onions, endive, curly endive is a good one. Roly-poly is like the curly endive, but... Okay, this is Siberian kale, which also can be planted outside right now. If you guys are kale eaters, that's an excellent plant. I plant my kale about... No, I don't think a square foot. I think less than that. I think I would probably plant
8 inches.
8 inches, maybe.
maybe 4 to start, but you're still going to have to do something else because when the plant, a calendula, we're talking about, my calendula plants get like that and like that.
Wow.
So,
One plant is that big?
Oh,
Like that?
I know, right now. Right now, and I haven't gotten their spring growth yet.
It's our, the calendula is, we eat the flower, right?
Right, and it's also called a pot marigold in case you're looking it up anywhere, and it's also good for nematodes, for soil nematodes. Okay, so there you go, kids.
Okay, Marcia?
Help yourself.
Water, last year I used just a spray thing once a day, but I think I may have only watered.
Probably did.
Okay, so how do you know how much water? Whatever you choose. I was going to see if I was soaking, but didn't do much.
Did it run out in the bottom? Did it go away all the way? Did it drain all the way? Did you store
Marcia,
is going to hold too much water to keep oxygen out.
Marcia, is this about the right amount of seedlings, or is this too many?
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Christy, what do you use all that, do you know?
It's all surprise.
She probably does. Her seeds. We don't know what she planted. It's a surprise.
Another thing, you guys, you could take a flat and plant lettuces in it, like a box, and plant lettuces in it. Thick. Okay? Thick.
Yeah.
Then when they start coming up, lettuces don't like to be transplanted.
They like to be.
Like to be.
And he
So when they come up, what I do is, if I plant them real thick because I don't have time to play around, I'll have a flat full. Then I'll take them out and I'll divide them into 2 or 3 plants, and I'll plug it. There's a plug there, there's a plug there, there's a plug there. So I'll plug them. Then as those lettuces, 3, 4 lettuces in each little plug, start to grow, I'll take the biggest ones and I'll cut them off, throw them in the salad, and then just leave one head for the center. Or I'll just come along and clip the whole row.
And you leave the roots in there?
Leave the roots in and they grow back. 3 cuttings out of a head of lettuce.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know
If you
that.
go for the bottom and you take the bottom leaves, even better yet. But professionally, you want to cut them. But if you're just growing for your family, wait until the lettuce, the bottom leaves look good. Go pull the bottom leaves off, and it'll put out more and more and more. Yeah, lettuce is a wonderful thing.
So I saw a lot of the greens.
Growing in these.
I don't know, but I will look.
They all look like alfalfa sprouts when they started.
Then I'll look at how much I made.
I don't know why. Yes. No, I don't think so. Not from the Record Courier. I'm proud of you. It must be alfalfa. It was a nice one. Good.
Well, these are some kind of brassica. So that might be arugula, brassica, broccoli, cauliflower, radishes,
And
kale,
after having eaten Marcia's food for
arugula,
one day we don't have
Somebody had a lot of
brassica
fun doing
store, I
that.
realized
Who did it?
the difference.
Craig, did you plant these?
What'd you plant here? These are leaves. Baby leaves.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Mary. That's cool. I like these.
That's why I didn't eat meat for as long as I
So
did.
what you can do in a case like
Why
this, where
I
there's
like
this
to eat
many,
meat around, so I try to keep it
is you
very, very minimal. And
Yes, and put more of them. Because that's too much.
The one road out there was good. Red ears.
set of leaves.
Yeah.
There's a nice real root system on it already. You can take it and break it apart. This is arugula.
That's a taste test.
That's pretty good.
So I'm guessing this is all arugula. I gave her a nice big package of arugula, and I can't see what's over there.
So you can't thin them by saving them and
You can.
You can.
You can take it out, take the whole
And then
thing out of the thing,
just like
and
that
then
little.
break them up.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
too small for me to do now.
Right.
Once it gets its first true sets of leaves, then I would take this whole, say I were doing it.
Yeah.
I would take that whole bunch,
And just break off.
dump it in my hand, and then I'd take and break it apart. And then I might plant every one of those in a separate hole.
Right. And typically for the true leaves, how long?
They'll be up probably next week.
Oh, okay.
So we can plant some in the community gardens here.
That's what we're hoping. I was hoping they wouldn't all be arugula. What?
What are those?
Not yet.
These?
That's all right.
That's arugula, I think. I know the one I tasted was arugula.
Okay.
A poor baby.
Kind of wet, huh?
Okay, let me show you something about lettuce. All right, I'll use this one over here as an example. If you plant lettuce, and this is planted very close. See how many he's got there? Can you see down there? Now what you can do is, you can just take your hand and I want a salad tonight. cut the whole thing.
At the soil level.
No, above.
Above the soil.
Above. You want to leave the crown,
Okay.
because as long as the crown is there, it'll produce new leaves. You should get 3 cuttings out of it. Or, if it's a larger lettuce, say like this one here, and I'm making a salad, just for myself.
You're just pinching?
Just pinch them off. Then all this will be more lettuce next week. And then you just wash this. Anybody want some salad? Wash it and throw it in your salad. Same thing you can do with this one here.
Sorry.
Another thing you could do with this one here is this.
What are you doing, Marcia?
Show you.
Pulling it up by its roots. Moving it.
I'm going to move it.
Oh.
Okay?
Move it over to our pile.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Okay? So then, what you want to do is you don't want to disturb the roots too much. They call it teasing. So we're going to tease these roots apart a little bit by getting the soil off of them. Now, because it's a lettuce, you can just go ahead like this and plant in plugs. So, I got it though. See? So, this one.
They do look like dandelions.
This is a an oak leaf bronze red oak leaf lettuce. This is a beautiful lettuce, very tasty too. Okay, so there's those, and we can go all the way down if we want. But it's best not to because these are a little too old. It's better to do it on the first 2 sets of leaves when you're going to transplant them into, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. This is better not to disturb these roots.
So how long do you think that's been planted, growing? What would your guesstimate
be? November. And the reason I say November is winter does not, they grow much slower in the winter.
Should we put them in without our compost being ready?
So what was the question?
Yeah, how far apart?
Like depth-wise and also surface area?
In here, you mean?
Where those lettuces
Because that's,
grow?
you know, it's a little too close. Unless you were, Mark is growing here for a saleable product. So let's go beyond saleable into your garden, okay? For your garden, yes, it's too close. Yes. And he's also fed this too, huh?
But to make it pretty to sell
Pretty
it
and full. But for your own garden, you want to plant them like that, okay? So you can start them in a flat, separate them, plant them about that far apart, right now. And plant them about that far apart, and then each lettuce will grow up to be a head.
3 cuttings.
Cut it and be sure and leave the crown, the center part. Or, since you're doing it for yourself, do like I did and just pick the outside large leaves, and there's your salad. And then you still have left the crown. So, that's it.
But just cutting the middle and that's all right? Cutting it straight off in the middle? but
Cutting it
not-
straight off like that is fine because you're leaving the crown.
So I know, like, my son had to grow a cabbage for school.
Cabbage is different.
And he cut it, well, he couldn't do it, it was huge. We cut it at the, like, inside, the outside leaves, just took out the ball in the middle, basically.
Right.
And another one did start to grow, actually, right there.
Right. And they will. It might even 2 or 3.
Do you need me to bring anything for next week then?
I think we're good to go.
Okay.
I think 3 classes is good to go.
Okay.
Because next week is going to be the last class. And we'll be meeting then.
Okay.